Let's look at the Biometrics Megatrend. First off, read this disclaimer carefully and do your good deed of today by liking and subscribing. Okay, so here we have the megatrends, and we go here to Biometrics. When we look here at the performance, it is significantly beating the S&P 500, but we have seen some significant haircuts. We will look at Identiv in this video. So 463% here from the low, 10-ish% away from the high. So let's first look at the company's website. So your touchless workplace. So here you can see their products, physical access control and video, a bunch of offers there, logical access control, tokens, FIDO to, as an example here, you have, their security cards, with this ID scan feature. Here we have their solutions. I mean, so basically this is, rather specific biometric company. And that is a key thing to consider when investing in any kind of theme, is to look under the hood. Is the company really giving you exposure to the theme or not? Because if you take as an example Microsoft, some people, they buy shares in Microsoft to get exposure to virtual reality. But when you consider the percentage of Microsoft's revenue that comes from virtual reality, then it is very, 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 very tiny. Even though, yes, Microsoft does have exposure to VR. So if we look here at the very long picture for this stock, what I find very striking is these time cycles. So when we go very far back in time, these rise, decline phases, they have been rather relevant throughout. So let's zoom in a bit. So here we find the low, high, low, high, low. Here we have a bit of a rising phase, low, here, and here. So basically, for some reason, these time cycles, they work. So far, they have been rather good at projecting price developments. The interesting thing about the current time cycle is that we have this very, very sharp rally. But if you look here at the time cycle, it suggests that there will be a declining, an acceleration of a declining phase here towards the later part of this year, and ending around early next year. Here we have the seasonality for INVE. INVE is the ticker, and this is over the last 20 years. The challenge with this stock is that, it moves in these waves, hence the seasonality can become a bit messy. We do, however, see that this month and the next, that's the weakest months. And this does come at a bit of an inopportune time, given that we have had very excessive RSI and PPO, which substantially increase the probability that this time cycle declining phase will, this could basically be what kicks it off. We do see some strengthening heading towards the later part of the year, but you see here the percentage of times in which it closes higher than it opened. It peaks at 58%. So the seasonality is there, but limited. If we look here at the PPO, we have never, in the history of this stock, had a higher PPO. So we have never been further away from the red 200-week moving average. Looking at the RSI, basically the vast, overwhelming majority of times in the past where we had this kind of weekly RSI, it was followed by significant pullbacks. And if we look a bit closely, let's do some studies. If we look at these time cycles from the early 2000s and until 2007, you see here that high weekly RSI, it called some of the major cycle peaks. So that is rather relevant. If we look at the more recent developments, Then you see here that that high RSI marked a major high, and then we did see also an exhaustion candlestick that is a bit similar to what we have here. Then we did have a very aggressive declining phase. Here we did have a bit more of a messy RSI signal. So here you can see that we had one RSI signal, overbought, a bearish signal, but we did have a bit of a pullback, but then we did actually push higher. In this instance, then the RSI gave a pretty clear signal, and also here it gave a clear signal in the sense that it could highlight a bearish opportunity. So I do think that the odds favor here on the weekly data points that there will be a pullback, especially when you take into account the seasonality for the coming months, which is very weak for Identiv. Looking very long term, we do actually have a very bullish pattern, and that is something called, the rounding bottom. So you do have this very clear rounding bottom pattern that is a long-term very bullish pattern. If we do get, the pullback that one could project based on the time cycles, then we would form a cup and handle pattern, which also is a bullish pattern. Okay, let's explore further. Here we have INVE. They draw the diagonal line. We were rejected here as we were here. When we look here at the analyst price targets, it gets a bit messy because you see here that here the target price is $16.25. Here is the current stock price, $15.95. But when we look here at the recent analyst price targets, you do have B. Riley Securities. They are most bullish. They have a price target of $21. But you see that basically all of these previous ones, they have substantially lower price targets, which is bearish. So basically, one could conclude that the price targets are bearish. We have to actually go quite a bit back in time to find the more bullish price targets. Like 2014 that's way back. Going here to Saks.com, they do have a number 5 strong sell, which means that the earnings estimate revisions, they have been going down. If you look here at the style scores, D value, mediocre, but there is a growth score, D of momentum. Industry rank, top 48%. They have a broad category, computer peripheral equipment. The company is small, $289 million in market cap. So to sum up my take here on this company, Identiv, I think that the theme is definitively something to be very bullish about. It's a very, very, very strong theme. And it definitively has a future. When we look at Identiv, the company offerings is very interesting. When we look here at the charts, the very long-term development, this rounding bottom pattern, which if we do get, that pullback from the euphoric highs now, we could form a cup and handle pattern, which also is a very bullish and very healthy pattern. It is the kind of pattern that is easier for institutions to get into in a more significant way. So Biometrics, it definitively has a strong future, and Identiv is very well positioned. The current situation for the company is basically that even though there is very good growth, the share price has simply run too far away from what currently actually is the reality of the company. Hence, this expectation that I am presenting here based on the fundamentals and the time cycles and the overbought signals, that the projection that we are going to have a pullback, it is not really, well, it is bearish in a sense, but it is also sort of like a natural dynamic of the market, and it actually is healthy. Since these rise, decline, time cycles, they are more sustainable for a stock than, these euphoric rallies, these bubbles that we see in other securities, because they have a tendency to end very poorly.